guys, welcome back to the Arcane Archive for another exciting episode of MetaTalks. And today's MetaTalk topic is quite the exciting one, as it always is. Go ahead and tell them about it, Sam. What were we talking about today?
It is the multi-classing episode.
Multi-classing, that is right. We will be discussing the multi-classing feature for Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition. Multi-classing is quite the popular aspect of the game, for sure. It's one of the things that people love the most about it. And there are a lot of positives and a lot of potential negatives to doing so. And we're kind of just going to go into it. It's going to be a bit of an introductory session on multi-classing, kind of the more canonical rules for multi-classing. There are certain aspects that you don't need to use, like depending on your DM, they might not use, but there are others that are kind of important, and it can get a little complicated, especially for beginners to try and do. So we're going to do our best to maybe help simplify it, or at the very least, just lay it out so it's easier to follow a little bit here. That being the case, we'll go ahead and just dive right on in. For multi-classing, this is the text for in the basic rule book for you. Multi-classing allows you to gain levels in multiple classes, as one would expect. Doing so lets you mix the abilities of those classes to realize a character concept that might not be reflected in one of the standard class options. With this rule, you have the option of gaining a level in a new class whenever you advance in level, instead of gaining a level in your current class. So it's important to realize this, and they're going to say this right now. Your levels in all your classes are added together to determine your overall character level. So again, this is probably one of the most important aspects of multi-classing to keep in mind, is if you want to, for instance, get to a 20th level character, if God allows, you will essentially be doing so at less of the overall level than other characters who would just go spec into one class. So as it says, for instance, if you have 3 levels in Wizard and 2 in Fighter, that makes you a 5th level character overall. So you have 2 levels in the Fighter class and 3 in the Wizard class, but your overall character level is 5 because you add those 2 together. What that usually means as well, again, important to keep in mind, is your individual, your classes in your character now, they will not be able to get higher than a certain threshold.
Yeah.
So now, because it's a 5th level character, you could, for instance, only put another 13 levels into basically either one of them at this point. And that basically means you will only, and it gets even more murky, obviously, if you add more and more classes into the mix. You basically get the potential ability to have a versatile kind of character that gives you a lot of different types of things you can do that are very specific to classes, but obviously it then starts to lower your potential for getting the more powerful or the more interesting character features at higher levels.
Yeah, and for some classes that's not a problem, but for Wizard, if you multi-class, well, guess what? You don't really get 9th level spells depending on what you're multi-classing into. For Fighter, you won't get your last extra attack. Barbarian doesn't get the
never-ending rage.
The one where you get your strength and con go above 20.
Oh yeah, no, that's
stuff like that.
Yeah, that's their capstone right there. That's it's important just to know those baseline kind of things when you are multi-classing, because obviously multi-classing, due to that fact, there is a potential possibility that your effectiveness might begin to drop off a bit compared to others, depending on, first off, what classes you choose to combine. Another thing to potentially be aware of, which in this particular rule, that doesn't really need to be implemented in a game if your DM or your players don't really like it or want it, but just in case you do, in the rules, the vanilla rules, there is a specific prerequisite that is required to multi-class, and by that I mean there are requirements for your stats to basically spec into another class. For barbarians, you have to have a strength of at least 13. And just as a heads up, for all of these, the stat requirement score would be 13 in whatever attribute. But for instance, for Fighter, Monk, Paladin, and Ranger, they require 2 different
Fighter's
attributes.
only 1.
No, Fighter is also 2.
It's or.
Oh, you're right. Actually, it is strength or dex. Wow. All right, good. Then Monk, Paladin, and Ranger then are the only ones that require both. Where Monks require 13 dex and wisdom, Paladins strength and charisma, and Rangers dex and wisdom as well.
Yeah.
Which I find that's just kind of weird.
I don't know. I like the flavor of it. Makes sense to me.
Well, I feel like at the very least, if it's supposed to be 2 separate ones, I feel like it should be a lower score. Like
maybe
I don't understand like why
12.
it's. I don't understand like why. I feel like it should at least be like 10 and 10.
I will say this: if you're playing a monk, you're gonna have something in wisdom and something in dex. If you're playing a paladin, same thing for strength and charisma. Ranger, you're gonna have like it's.
Well, that's the thing. Obviously, if you utilize this particular rule, like it is very dependent on what your starting class is and what you're trying to build, even just from that starting class.
Yeah.
Like, because like I said, like for instance, if you're building a ranger, you can just spec into monk right away at that point because they literally have the same exact prerequisite requirements for their stats. Obviously, if you're going like paladin, or if you're going like fighter and want like a little bit extra juice for with paladin, you would have to you'd already have the strength most likely, which is good, and you just have to get your charisma up. But usually, fighters don't have much of a prerequisite like 4 to increase their charisma unless you're doing again a specific type of kind of character.
Yeah, I mean, again, even multi-classing in general is not always allowed at every table.
It's true.
Depending on your DM.
Because it can get a little, again, murky and kind of difficult to track at times, especially at higher levels.
Or if you're me and you make characters that are more powerful than they should be. You get people who would rather have multi-classing not be able to be picked at a certain time. My main DM that I play with, he does it based on story. The only time he ever let me multi-class was when I had a barbarian that died, was reincarnated, and ended up taking levels in Paladin. And that was only because I was already religious as a zealot barbarian. So,
and see, that does get...
But I spent nearly a year playing that character before it happened, and so he thought it was a good story beat, and that's the only reason he let me do it.
Well, I was going to say, that absolutely gets into another aspect of multi-classing on, like you just touched on and said, does it make, like, thematic or flavor sense for this character to be, like... Are you doing it just purely based off of like mechanics, like meta kind of stuff of like
me?
Yeah, like these things like work really well, or is it more of like an actual thing that like it makes sense why your character could potentially do this if they wanted?
Yeah, it's a bit of a tiptoe. My thing is that the things with multi-classing is while they have prerequisites and while they have this. 1, you don't even have to allow it at your table. And 2,
you do not have to allow prerequisites.
You don't even have to have prerequisites or multi-classing available. So this is more like if your DM is like, hey, I'll let multi-classing happen, but you need to...
It is a bit of a work. Yeah, it's I feel like the prerequisite rule is specifically kind of used to be like, hey, if you want this, you're going to have to work for it a little bit. Or, it's going to have to be a more deliberate... specific thing.
You have to think this out
which is fair. Like again, because honestly it might even be good to kind of prime your brain because again, even if you didn't allow prerequisites, it is still probably very important to think and plan exactly how you're going to progress with multi-classing because again, if you're not if you're not careful, your character might have the possibility of starting to become kind of
well, you're losing out on ability. Like, say someone rolls just a straight fighter or a straight ranger. They continue to get abilities that supplement and increase kind of
their
what they already
effectiveness
do.
At what they do.
If you take what you do and you move it into something else to diversify or
get more versatile,
make something else that you do better, you might lose a little bit of efficiency. You might lose a little bit of prowess. You might not have as many resources.
Well, you won't be as necessarily as effective
you might not be.
in a specific thing as some of your other party members might be. I mean, again, giving an example. Obviously, at 5th level, that's usually when a lot of things really start to get interesting for almost every class, if not every class.
Martial class gets extra
attack. Spellcaster classes get 3rd level spells.
Like Fireball, Fly, all the ones that you
Haste,
see. Yeah,
all slow, the greats.
They're all encountered altering abilities.
They are.
That change action economy vastly that early on in the game.
I mean, it's effectiveness overall, like the utility. That's when things really start to jumpstart in any D&D or other game. Is 5th level is when things really start to get interesting. You start to feel that heroicness come up.
So you start multiclassing, you're going to lose out on that.
You'll lose out on that, like, again, like, you'll be far behind the others in terms of that. Because like I said, with the example before, if you are a 3rd level wizard and a 2nd level fighter, that makes you a 5th level character. But because you're only a 3rd level wizard, you do not get access to 3rd level spells.
And because you're not a 5th level fighter, you don't get your extra
do
attack.
not get extra attack.
It's one of those things where you have to look at, like, how many levels do I want to take in one class before I start switching it up? What abilities do I want to make sure I have under my belt before I try to augment them in a different way? For me, if I'm going to start multiclassing, my general rule of thumb is I'm doing it when I'm jumping into a campaign at a higher level anyway.
That's
that way
usually
I can just
that's probably usually the most ideal like instance to at least try multiclassing is like Sam said when you are already at a high level, so that way you still have access to all of the potentially really cool stuff and you can mix and match as you please. You have a little bit more flexibility for how you're going to build, especially from the ground up. Obviously, if you're going, it also can get a little bit more difficult when you're like playing an actual campaign, a long form campaign, and you're like, okay, what do I really want to do? Like, I want to try this stuff, but then obviously you start to see your friends who might be just doing a straight class, and they're just getting all this cool shit, and like you have again versatility as a fighter and a wizard. You have a probably way more health than a normal wizard would at the same character level of 5.
And you have access to...
you have access to like magic and spells that, say, for instance, a fighter, even an Eldritch Knight, would not have access to, especially to the same amount. So it's like you get versatility, but you lose out on overall effectiveness or power, depending. And obviously, again, this is very much more like this is much more true at lower levels.
Yeah, I would say like the multi-classing stuff, especially the builds you'll see online or the concepts that you'll see, they take some time to get rolling. And once they do, but here's the thing.
You can make some solid multi-class builds.
The funny thing is people are like, oh, well, it takes time to get rolling. If it takes to 14th level for you to be effective, any 14th level character is going to be effective.
Yeah. And again, in some ways, like, that is a wonderful point on, like, it's like if it takes you that long for something to really work, then it's like you just missed out on a lot of fun and a lot more probably interesting things that you could do at a lower level if you just spec into a single class. Then it might really be worth it. Because again, at 14th level especially, things start to... The whole balancing thing starts to become very slippery slope and very kind of moldable and bendable. So it's like at that point, if you have a 14th level wizard and then like a 14th character level, like let's say
you're like 4 or 5 fighter,
and like
the rest is wizard, you'll still be good.
I mean, you'll do a lot of great stuff as a wizard at 14th level, and then like as a 19th level character with like you'll do great amazing things. But the same could be said, like for instance, if you wanted to do wizard and fighter, you could have also just done like a blade singer, for instance.
Yeah, or if you just want to have a fighter that can wear heavy armor, you just take a 2-level dip for action surge and you have fun. Yeah,
or if you wanted a wizard that has heavy armor, you technically could get the feat heavy armor.
I mean, it takes some investment.
Yeah. But like you could do it. Like
just play Turtle.
Literally.
Just play Turtle.
Yeah.
You can fly and you have a shell.
Like play a Turtle, play Goliath.
There are and like if you're multi-classing for roleplay or for like a character idea that you have that purely from a like story standpoint, fucking go for it. I love that kind of stuff. You may not be the best at what you're doing, but you'll figure out a way to get things done.
But I mean that's the thing. Like you're the best at what you're doing for your character, right? Like if this is the journey, if this is the story that you want to tell of this character who is doing this,
do it.
I am always down for that 100%.
And especially if your DM sees that you're building a character that's not very good. They might not. I mean, like I've had this happen multiple times where I built a character. I was like, "This is what they're going to be," without even multi-classing, and they weren't very good. They weren't spec'd correctly. It was a design choice, and yes, you know what? You might die or you might not do very well, but eventually you'll figure something out and you'll be good at something.
Well, here's the thing, and
you'll find your place.
To add to that is again, if for instance, I think this is a great example. Not even just for multi-classing, but overall. For instance, if you are at any point in your game playing a character that you're just not having fun with, you're not happy with, for whatever reason, talk with your DM.
Yeah, kill them off.
It's important. You don't have to kill them off. You can literally just have them, go off into the forest.
That's what I do.
Yeah, I'm aware that's what you do. You didn't do that for all of them. Like, you still have some characters who are still alive in
Most
your
of them
game
are.
world and such.
Most of them
Point
are.
being, you don't have to. You shouldn't necessarily feel trapped with your character. One, my advice would be to start off with talk to your DM, of course, obviously for the
Make sure
entire
any
time.
of this is okay.
Yeah, but to basically be like, okay, hey, if you still have a particular attachment to this character, but if you don't like mechanically how they're going, or even the direction that their character is kind of gone, but you still have an attachment to like the idea, or the concept that you had, the personality, talk with your DM to see if maybe you might be able to find some way of respecking into like a different class, or just kind of shoring up the multi-class.
Bit,
yeah, like see if you are multi-classing, maybe you took a bit too many levels in one particular class that it just didn't really make sense. It doesn't work at this particular level right now, and it would be better if you had more in the other class. I don't see any reason why, for me as a DM, I would not be against that. I'd be like, yeah, you know what? The whole point is to have fun. And if you're not really enjoying your character build at the moment, but you still want this character, that's fine. Yeah. For instance, I can give an example, like in a campaign that we're playing now. Again, it's been going on for almost 2 years now. One of our players, one of my fellow players, she basically chose a wild magic barbarian. And there were particular like story beat reasons on kind of not necessarily why this was initially, but there were other aspects of her character that yield a little bit of flexibility when she kind of started to state and come across that she wasn't really having fun with it after a certain point. Like she was not having as much fun as she thought she would be with the class, like, even with like the wild magic surges and stuff. Like, it just wasn't really what she was wanting, expecting. So, due to the fact that there were certain things about her backstory, her story, her current state, she was essentially like, her soul was trapped inside of like a lamp, almost like a genie kind of thing, where her physical body, she was separated from her physical body, and the lamp was like her physical vessel, but she could emanate from it in like a kind of a hard light projection kind of thing, almost. Yeah, but because of that, our DM was like, okay, cool. So we're going to do a thing where we're going to do for her backstory, we're going to get her body back for her actual physical body. And because of that, she allowed her basically to kind of respec her character to be like, because now you have your original body back. Your original body, like the class and the path they went down was a bit different. Because when your soul was ripped out, you kind of had an interesting interaction with like a magical thing that gave you
so
this kind of version.
Yeah, you can always spin it.
That's just one example of like, hey, she took an opportunity in story, as Sam said before, like the same thing that his DM did with him, to give an interesting, cool, flavorful reason for why your character could be different now. Like you just
change something. Like, there's the thing with, I think more people think about multi-classing in a way where it's like, oh, I need it to be specifically this, specifically that. And sometimes I do a little bit of that, but most of my, I'm playing a rogue fighter multi-class right now. Whenever I level up, I'm not thinking of how I'm divvying up my levels. I just look at what would I get if I went 2 more levels in fighter now versus another level in rogue right now. Yeah. And I just make it on the fly. I don't care. It's fun.
And that's good too. I mean, and that's another thing too. Like even with that, even though we gave an example, you don't even really need to have like an in-game reason either necessarily to change your class. Again, if you are just not having fun and you still want to try and play this character and really flesh out their story and play this character's story, if your DM is okay with it, like,
throw things, move things around.
Just change some stuff up, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, nobody at the table's gonna care.
At least in my opinion, I feel like they shouldn't. Some people might be like, well, that's not fair. Like, they get that. It's like, okay. The point again is to have fun, and if it's not something that like inadvertently harms anything or the other players or anything, then there shouldn't be, in my opinion, a reason for why you can't just be like, you know what, sure, let's just try something else here. Yeah. But again, another thing for you in regards to multi-classing, you also don't necessarily need an in-game or story reason to multi-class either. For instance, if you're a fighter who's like primarily in Dex, and maybe you're just a character, you're a fighter that interacts with the underworld more. Who says you can't also be a rogue then?
Especially like if it's in your backstory, or if it's something you touch on, like, or something. Say you're working with those kinds of people in your campaign. Why wouldn't you pick up some of those skills?
Yes, and you could absolutely learn those things and start speccing into it.
It would be easy. If you make a case for it, I don't think most DMs would be pretty cool with it as long as you meet the prerequisites and you play your character in that way.
I think, agreed. I think for me, if it makes sense, I'm like all for it. Yeah. Like again, it might be a little bit of something that's like, oh, you're like a frenzy barbarian, and now you want to start specking into wizard out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's a no for me.
Like that seems a little like, why though? Because again, it's like you didn't even put like a lot of points into intelligence. You don't really have a backstory where like you read books or you're interested in magic. You're just like, oh, I just want to do magic now, and so I want to be a wizard. So I'm gonna multi-class as a wizard.
Character.
Yeah, it's like at that point, it's like that seems a little like, I don't know if I would allow that because again, it's like I can't really see a way for that really to make sense in regards to like.
My main one is the only multi-class I don't like allowing is sorcerer.
How is that?
Specking into sorcerer, because the whole concept of the class is that you have an innate power. And I have friends who are like, oh, but like I want to multi-class into sorcerer, and I'm like, why? What in your backstory would allow that to happen? And then they don't have one. I'm like, okay, well, what's happened to you so far that would think you would have any kind of contact with something like that? Nothing. Okay, well, it could happen, but it's not going to be right now.
Here's what I will say about that. I mean, literally in the sorcerer subclass and in the sorcerer like lore and everything, like it could literally even just be like, hey, they went through enough trial and tribulation that like, or they received a certain trauma that it activated a dormant recessive gene 100%. In their body that's going to take more work than just emanates.
Oh, I want to be a sorcerer now. Well, you haven't done anything that would put you close to that. I'm sorry.
Maybe. I mean, again, to be fair too, it could. It's easy enough. Even for me, I feel like for sorcerer, in terms of multi-classing, sorcerer, as well as probably with warlock, is like the two easiest things to justify that. Oh, you can just be that now, in my opinion.
Oh, that's your easiest ones?
I mean, for sure. Like, again, you can literally just, like, if you have, like, a god or a being or whatever that you have, like, stumbled upon, like, literally, because that's how all warlocks, or not all, but that's how, like, the vast majority of warlocks get their power, too. It's like, at level 1, they're like, hey, I was able to stumble upon this ancient, powerful entity that I made a deal with. It's like, you could literally just make that happen to at any point. Same thing with sorcerer. It's like, it doesn't even have to make sense. All of a sudden, your power just activates because you're a sorcerer.
I guess for me, it's one of those things where, like, you don't get to pick when that starts.
I guess. Like I said, I think you could. In my opinion, I feel like with those two specific ones, I feel like those make the most sense. For like just shit just manifesting for no reason out of nowhere.
I prefer the ones where it's like it's related to some sort of skill, like fighter, monk, paladin, ranger.
I like, or at least it has a cool connection. Like again, like you said, for instance, your barbarian was a zealot barbarian who was already religious. I think it's dope and it makes sense. It's like, oh yeah, he could become a paladin because that's essentially what a zealot barbarian is. Yeah, they are like paladins.
I also died and actually came in contact with my god, hence the paladin.
That too.
Rebirth.
I could see also, again, if you're going to take, for instance, like the subclasses that usually kind of branch off, like, Eldritch Knight or Arcane Trickster, you could absolutely just start specking. That would make sense then to start specking into Wizard. Be like, you're already technically dabbling in the arcane and magic.
Like Wizard and Artificer into each other as well. Is an easy one.
I mean, that's a perfect one, obviously. Yeah. Like, that one just makes the most sense.
Rogue into Ranger or Fighter into Ranger.
Or Rogue and Monk. And there are some that blend really great in terms of not necessarily even just like the attribute score prerequisite, but also just flavor wise, and like these things have a lot of overlap, and it makes sense.
You look at what they get, and you're like, okay, this makes sense.
This works. They fit. They work almost in every like way in terms of being able to justify why you are doing this, even in game or even out of game, whatever. You don't need it, technically speaking, in my opinion. But like Sam, I think we both agree, like, we like that stuff. We feel like that is cooler, and I feel like it has far more impact if you do that.
Yeah, it gives you a reason. But real quick, I'm going to go over these next couple of things, just because they're pretty simple. In terms of experience, whether or not your DM does actual calculated experience, which I've never encountered, or milestone.
I have. And
you are not going off of your individual levels in a class. You are going off your total level. Yeah. So you will not level up faster if, say, you have 6 levels in one class and 1 level in another, and you only want to level up that class you have 1 level in. It's the same amount of XP it would take to get to level 8. As it's not, you don't get to like oh, I'm going to level my lower level class, so it takes...
It's about your character level, not your class level.
You get into things like hit points and hit dice. Obviously, each class has its own hit dice, which means every level you take in a specific class, that is what you roll to determine your hit points. Yeah. It is not, oh, well, I'm level 4 fighter, level 6 wizard, but I want to have all fighter hit die. No. It is by your level in the individual class. That's all you need to know there. Proficiency bonus has nothing to do with your individual levels in a class. It is your total level as well.
Yep.
And then you get into things like proficiencies.
And that's when things do start to get like
a little funky,
a little bit murkier, because again, it's specifically, and again, it's important for your classes. Obviously, everybody knows when you first start a character class, you get your starting proficiencies from that character class. Mm-hmm. Now, when you multi-class, you only get those proficiencies from your first starting class. Whatever class you picked first, those are proficiencies that you get from that class. You don't get that again from your multi-class.
That's stuff like your saving throws, your skills, stuff like that. Unless a class has a subclass has an ability,
or if it's a feature that literally grants you bonuses,
like proficiencies and stuff, then you get them. But
then you get them later on. But it's not the initial thing that you just get from. You do not get that for your multi-class.
You will get, depending on your class, certain weapon or armor proficiencies.
This is true.
And we'll go through these now just because it's easy.
So, Barbarian, you get shields, simple weapons, and martial weapons. For Bard, you get light armor, one skill of your choice, one musical instrument of your choice. Clerics get light armor, medium armor, and shields. And again, this is also important to say, depending on your subclass, for instance.
Your domain. Then you'll get heavy armor.
You could get heavy armor, or your proficiencies would then apply at that point. But for just the base level classes, they will not. So it's important just to remember and be aware of that.
Can I help you, sir? Yeah, he's looking at that table.
No, he is. And again, it's not like he's not allowed, but still, always the troublemaker. You are.
Yeah, we come up to Druid. You get light armor, medium armor, shields. There's the caveat that Druid will not wear armor or shields made of metal. Some people follow that. A lot of people don't. You get the Fighter. Light armor, medium armor, shields, simple weapons, martial weapons. You're noticing a theme here. It's heavy armor proficiency.
Indeed.
Now, some DMs will just waive that. Like, if I had someone who wanted to multi-class, I don't care. I really don't.
I think if they have, again, the I think maybe this case I might make it a bit more of a attribute prerequisite, where it's like, if you have the strength or maybe even the con to wear heavy armor and you multi-class with a class that normally does have that proficiency.
Yeah, maybe I let you spend some time training with medium armor if you never worked before, and then eventually I'll just let you do it.
If you have this class that normally has it, I would be open to allowing that. If you took the time to already prerequisite spec into this class, I don't see why you can't have.
Then again, that's kind of the whole reason of. If you're going to spec with a martial class and a spellcasting class, you usually start with the martial class because they get more of those combat proficiencies right
They do. They give you more survivability at early levels, which helps.
Yeah. We're moving on to Monk, which is the least proficiencies gained aside from Sorcerer and Warlock. At simple weapons and short swords.
And Wizard.
Yeah. Paladin, you get light armor, medium armor, shields, simple weapons, martial weapons. Ranger, you get light armor, medium armor, shields, simple weapons, martial weapons, one skill from the class's skill list.
Rogues, you get light armor, one skill from the class's skill list, and thieves' tools. Sorcerer, you would technically get nothing. Warlock, you would get light armor and simple weapons, and for Wizard, you would also get nothing.
Because they do spells.
They do spells, but I mean, so do...
They do the most spells. One of them does the most spells.
Well, that's the thing. Not even Cleric technically does the most spells at any given time.
But the
Wizards can.
They have the most slots.
Yeah, Wizards can have the most... Well, technically they have the same slots. Either way, point being, Wizards and Sorcerers both technically, even in base form, have the least proficiencies. They would get nothing really here, which I guess makes sense because you would technically already have that with almost every other class anyway. So it doesn't make sense for you to necessarily get that with that too. But that, in effect, is the multi-classing proficiency list that you are able to obtain from multi-classing. Moving on, specifically, again, as we were touched upon earlier, to class features in multi-classing. When you get a new level in a class, you get its feature for that level. So, that is, again, this is really the bread and butter and reason for multi-classing, is the feature list on your classes. The mixture and combination is the thing that can make multi-classing shine or make it, you know, an absolute turd, depending. So, one thing to realize, however, you do not receive the class's starting equipment, and few features have additional rules when you're multi-classing, such as Channel Divinity, Extra Attack, Unarmored Defense, and Spell Casting. So, for Channel Divinity, if you already have the Channel Divinity feature and gain a level in a class that also grants the feature, you gain the Channel Divinity effects granted by that class. But getting the feature doesn't give you an additional use of it. So, you can basically have just more options for your Channel Divinity.
But not more uses.
But not more uses automatically. You gain additional uses only when you reach a class level that explicitly grants them to you. For example, if you're a Cleric 6, Paladin 4, you can use Channel Divinity twice between rests because you are a high enough class level in the Cleric class to have more uses. Whenever you use the feature, you can choose any of the Channel Divinity effects available to you from your two classes, as I said earlier.
Here's the second one that some people definitely don't know that this is a rule. The Extra Attack class feature for more than one class does not stack.
It does not.
You can't make more than 2 attacks with this feature unless it says you can, like the Fighter. Similarly, the Warlock's Eldritch Invocation Thirsting Blade doesn't give you additional attacks if you also have Extra Attack. So, most of the time, if you're playing a class that you would only get 1 attack, a non-Valor or Swords Bard, a Rogue, any of the normal spellcasting classes, that's where you would get, you know, if you get the Extra Attack feature once, you get your 2 attacks, that's probably about what you're going to get to. The investment it would take to do a Fighter would be, I believe, what is it?
I think 12th level.
11th or 12th level to get 3 attacks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't say, you don't get an extra 3. You get the 3.
You get 3.
So the whole point is, like, for me at least, the way I look at it, is you at least want to get to that part where you have 2 attacks.
The extra, I mean, that's what I'm saying. 5th level is usually, like, the best kind of spot for multi-classing in terms of, like, like martial classes. Yeah, that extra attack, depending on what build you're trying to do, is fantastic. Like, that is when things are fun. That is when, like, you can really do some cool stuff. And once again, obviously, you could also, to be fair, like spec into Monk. And then if you have key points, you could do Flurry of Blows, and then you could do like freaking 3 or 4 attacks at 5th level.
Yeah, like, but that's another thing you're specking into.
That is another thing you're specking into, and again, depending on how you're doing things and what's going on, it has potential to drop off even with having all of those attacks.
Yeah.
Another one to be aware of is the Unarmored Defense feature. If you already have the Unarmored Defense feature, you cannot gain it from another class. So it's like if you can't have, even if you have both Barbarian and Monk, you cannot benefit necessarily from both of those things. You're either going to be using your Wisdom or you're going to be using your Con.
Yeah, whatever one's highest.
Yeah.
You know, and that's the same thing, like if you have... there's different like things that you can add AC, like if you have like magical armor or different class abilities, whatever the highest one is, you don't get to add them. You just take the better one.
Exactly. It's not a, like, you know, adding together to like create something better. It's like, no, this is just better. So that is the peak that you have.
Now we're gonna get into the weirdest one here.
This is the most complicated. If anybody's looking to multi-class into spellcasters,
the easiest way to do it is to just have one class that casts no spells into a class that does just cast spells, because that way you're just going off the original class spell table.
You do not have to cross-reference between 2 separate classes, especially if they're like
half or quarter casters.
Yeah, if they're like bards and sorcerers and druids and then wizards, because wizards are awesome. But they are the most complicated fucking class. Well, it's
basically an honor system of how much you know.
Yeah.
It's very easy to mess that up.
Wizards are the most complicated spellcasting class in the game. Like, they just are. Because you don't have your entire spell list right away. You have to find that shit, and you only get 2 spells per level. They also are able to ritual cast certain spells that have the ritual cast, as long as they're in your spell book, even if you don't prepare them. And obviously they also gain more spells depending on how high their intelligence and their proficiency bonus. Like, they are the most complicated spellcasters. So multi-classing with wizard is usually the hardest thing to do if you're multi-classing 2 spellcasters. Because it's just, there's so much small minutia.
The easiest part at the beginning is the known and prepared spells. You just do that as individual classes. So say you're a wizard, you prepare them as normal. Your known slots are it's completely normal. But the problem is when you get because ranger is a half class, wizard is a full class, you're going to have issues where you don't have the same amount of spell slots. As you have spell slots, but you might not be able to prepare higher level spells the same way.
So another thing to realize as well with multi-classing with spellcasters, as we said earlier, because your overall spellcaster class is going to be lower, because if you multi-class, you still technically progress because your character level determines how many spell slots you have. It's not just your spell class level that determines how many. So, for instance, if you're a, let's say, if you are a multi-class, if you are a 5th level caster, you will have, if you are technically, let's say 10th level, right? If you are a 10th level character, your spell slot that you would have 4 1st level, 3 2nd level, 3 3rd level, 3 4th level, and 2 5th level.
And that's if you're 2 casters or just... But you would have to... If you're a half caster and a full caster, that goes down.
Yes.
You're counted as a different level.
That is true. But obviously, this is if you have 2 full caster classes multi-classing, this is where you would be at. However, even though you're 10th level... And I forget exactly at this point, you still wouldn't necessarily be able to prepare, because let's say you're 5th level for both of those classes. You would only be able to prepare a max of 3rd level spells.
Yeah.
You have the higher level spell slots, but you would not be able to cast those higher level spells, if that makes sense. So for instance...
They actually give a really good example here.
Yeah.
So Wizard 3, Ranger 4. Ranger is not a full caster. Yeah. So you're actually, instead of counting as a 7th level character for casting, you're only counted as a 5th level character. So your spell slots are not going to be the same as if you were a Fighter 4 Wizard 3. Yeah. So you'd only have 4 1st level slots,
3 second, and
2 3rd. And you might have access to, you might not even have access to spells that are 3rd level.
You don't. You would not.
You wouldn't. Yeah. But you could cast spells at that level.
3rd level. So again,
you don't have Fireball.
Yeah, you don't have Fireball, you don't have Haste, you don't have Fly, but you could cast Chromatic Orb or Scorching Ray at 3rd level because you have those spell slots.
And if you're using one of those, character building apps, yes, it makes it easier, but if you're doing this on paper, this is in the PHB, correct?
Yes.
So they have the table. They have some of the math.
This is the basic rules that you can just find pretty easily. It's literally free usually on
a lot of places. So
so you can usually follow this table if you're trying to multi-class casters. Obviously, as Sam said, depending if it's a quarter caster like a ranger and a full caster like a wizard, it becomes far more complicated because it's hard to keep track of the ranger because the ranger also does not increase their spells at the same rate as even half casters do. So it's hard to keep track of that.
I stay far away from those multi-classes.
Yeah,
for that reason.
That seems like a horror. Like I said, wizards are also already the most complicated spellcasting class. So it's doing this along with a quarter caster multi-class where you're just why even do that to begin with? No. You don't need a quarter caster with a full caster like this. It's just not even...
you want to build a weird character, build one.
You can, but it just makes things a lot more complicated in a lot of ways. One thing, however, to be aware of, though, is the feature Pact Magic. And this is, again, we're going to be getting into a little bit of our favorite kind of multi-class options, as well as some of the probably ones that we don't like, but Pact Magic from the Warlock class, this is going to be a reason why Warlock, in my opinion, little spoiler alert, is one of the best classes to multi-class with. if you have both the spellcasting class feature and the pack magic class feature from the warlock class, you can use the spell slots you gain from the pack magic feature to cast spells you know or have prepared from classes with the spellcasting class feature. And you can do so vice versa as well. Now, again, another thing to be aware of is there's a reason why in the game they specifically say, like, you have a wizard spell list and a druid spell list and a cleric spell list. Because these spells can only be cast in a specific way with a specific attribute. So, for instance, if you multi-class with wizard and cleric, you have two separate spell lists. You have the cleric and you have the wizard. And you cannot technically cast like a cleric spell utilizing like your intelligence and your wizard arcane focus or whatever.
Yeah.
Unless there's a specific feature that allows you to do so.
You can use the slot, but you can't use your ability.
Well, because your slots would be the same. Like because of your overall spell, your slots would always be the same based off your character level. But you cannot cast like you can't cast Sacred Flame with using your wizard attributes and stuff. You'd have to use your wisdom, and you'd have to use like a holy symbol or something that specifically is connected to the divine aspect. Same thing, conversely, you couldn't cast Disintegrate as a cleric using your holy symbol. You would have to use an arcane focus and your intelligence to do so.
Yeah.
Whereas with pact magic, you can. I think you might still have to use your warlock spells, like with your charisma. But, because it doesn't specifically say your spellcasting ability or your spellcasting whatever. Like, it specifically just says you can't, because with the pack magic feature, obviously, as a warlock, you also don't get the same type of spell slots that normal casters do. And so I think this is a way of basically being like, hey, don't worry about that, because with warlocks, they get like, they only ever have like 3 to like 5 at max, like, slots. Yeah. And their slot level also just goes up, like, you only ever have 1 level of spell slot. It's always going to be either 3rd, 5th, 6th, 7th, whatever. You know what I mean? Like, or 5th technically is the highest, but still. You, as a warlock, you only ever have the 1 level spell slot. You don't have multiple levels. It's only the 1 level. And so because of that, this pack magic is like, hey, you can just cast using all your spell slots in that way, because it will be different. Even though they are full casters. Excuse me. But yeah, overall, that is kind of the meat and potatoes of the multi-classing like mechanic and feature specifically. Now, me and Sam are actually going to get a little bit into the actual culmination of multi-classing specifically, on terms of like, what you can do in multi-classing, what that actually look like. Like, we kind of gave you the rundown of the rules and mechanics of it. So now we're just going to have a little bit of fun and be like, hey, these are some cool little multi-classes that we like. These are some maybe not so great ones that we don't really understand. Sam, if you would like to go ahead first. I know you had quite a few that you were interested in showcasing.
There are ones that I like. I don't have a specific build per se, but I'll go off of kind of what my actual character was, which was the barbarian paladin mix.
That always sounds like a great one.
It's fun. So the main thing you have to think of is barbarian rage keeps you from casting spells or concentrating on spells.
It's true. Or at least, it
does. You can't.
No. But it won't stop you, for instance, from casting a spell before raging.
Exactly.
And then if it doesn't require concentration, you're good, such as spiritual weapon.
Yeah.
Spiritual weapon. I actually have that literal example right in here, as a matter of fact.
But my favorite thing was the fact that I could lay on hands someone while very angry.
Oh yeah, no, it's not a spell.
No,
that's just a feature.
It's just ability. Same thing as your aura. If you were high enough paladin, your auras are just there.
The best thing, your divine smite.
Yes, and that was what I mostly did it for, was the fact that I could be raging, give myself advantage, fish for crits, and then
divine smite is, even though it requires spell slots,
you're not casting.
It's not a spell.
So
it doesn't require you to like focus and chant or do somatic components. Like you're
just hitting things.
You literally just expel your energy and magic into your weapon to create like a nuke, like to harm a creature.
So there was a point. I think I got a couple levels in paladin where I was using a flame tongue sword.
That's awesome. That's probably my favorite.
I did
sword
extra necrotic damage from my barbarian class, and I had brutal critical.
Yep.
I also had the radiant damage from paladin.
Yep.
So I was doing like magical slashing, fire, necrotic, and radiant.
2d6 fire.
Every time I hit somebody.
At least 2d8 radiant. At least
an extra d6 necrotic.
An extra d6 necrotic, and with the rage damage on top of that.
So I was doing a good amount of damage spread out.
You're a straight juggernaut, bro.
Oh yeah,
that's the juggernaut build right there. You just destroy and decimate everything.
And it was very fun. It wasn't a planned.
You're hard to kill.
Wasn't a planned multi-class.
Hard to kill.
But it worked out, and it was almost fun impossible to kind of build on the fly. And it still is something that like I'd want to do again.
Oh yeah, dude, that
different theme.
That particular multi-class build sounds fun as hell. Like
if I had like a one shot, I would totally bring that character.
Yeah, just run like you're just it's fantastic. Obviously another particularly popular one that we're both I believe aware is the coffee lock build.
Is that
That is the one where you specifically multi-class sorcerer and warlock, where this is, I don't know if this will be the most popular one maybe, or the most, I guess I should say, infamous one. But essentially the idea is to be able to cast as many spells as possible. It will give you a ton of spell slots to use by creating them from your sorcery points, from your sorcery, your meta magic, and your font of magic feature from your sorcerer class. So you essentially, like, the gist of it is you can basically, as a warlock, you get, like, as I said before, you just have your spell slot level. Like at, I think, when do you get 5th level spells? Like 8th, 10th level, something like. Just in general, because I think warlocks get them at like 10th, 8th level or something, right?
Yeah, warlocks is a weird one.
Because they technically I think get like the same slot level. Yeah, I think they get the same slot level per.
Slot level for 5th level spell starts at 9th level. 9th
level spell. So at 9th level warlock, you will have 5th level spell slots. And you just will have 5th level spell slots. Obviously, as a sorcerer, you will have more overall spell slots to utilize. But the thing being is, as a warlock, you are able to get back your spell slots at a short rest.
Yeah.
So, what you can do, however, is you can fire off 5th level spells using your warlock 5th level spell slots as a sorcerer. So you can utilize those 5th level spell slots as a sorcerer and then use meta magic or even use your own, for instance, your sorcerer spells and your spell slots, but then use your warlock spell slots to then get back either sorcery points that you can then spend to get back spell slots. So it's a literal, like, almost never-ending, like, continuation.
And then there's this...
As long as you don't rest. As long as you don't long rest.
Yeah, so that's
why they call it the coffee lock, because you can't long rest, otherwise it will break everything.
The real issue with it is the fact that some DMs will not let you break up your rests like that.
It's true.
And you will eventually become dependent on Diamond Dust for greater restoration to get rid of exhaustion levels.
Yeah, and honestly, some DMs also just straight ban this combination because
it's not fun for anyone else there.
It's not a lot of fun, and it is kind of just annoying and dumb where you're just like, I'm just going to continuously short rest to get back my 5th level warlock spells,
then break those down
into sorcery points, and then use my sorcery points to get back my sorcerer spell slots. Because again, that is true. You can only get back sorcerer spell slots with your sorcery points. But you can just keep using your warlock 5th level warlock spell slots, because again, it's not ever 1-for-1. It's not like you get, a certain amount of whatever back. Or it's not like you get like 5 sorcery points back per level. I think there's a difference in whatever, but still, even with 5th level slots, you get a decent amount of sorcery points back, and you'll have at least like 2, if not 3 5th level slots. And so at the very least, I think that'll be like 6 sorcery points, if not 9 sorcery points back, which you then can just use to get back your thing. And you can just keep short resting, and then if you just short rest, like again, if you do it, If you short rest 4 times.
Well, it's 8 short rests per long rest.
Yeah.
So you can get 16 first level slots, 10 second level slots.
Yeah.
And a first level slot. The problem is, realistically speaking, is that no story or game is going to work like this. Because you can't short rest while traveling. You can't short rest while laying down in a moving vehicle. You can't short rest in certain environments. You can't short rest in active combat. You can't just short rest. Like, there's limits to how much a character can rest in general.
It's true.
Like, most people, like, a lot of DMs, they'll just stop letting you do it, and then your character's useless.
Yeah.
So, as much as I love the idea of this...
It's a fun little gimmick. It's a fun little gimmicky kind of build where
I'd much rather just do...
I have infinite spell slots!
I'd much rather just do the Gatling Gun Warlock, where you just rely on your cantrip, and you just use your spell slots to fuel your twin Gatling Gun.
Yeah.
Because that's, at least, you still have access to sorcerer spells, and you could still diversify yourself. This is like crack. This is basically just like...
No, well,
this is like...
Again, this is why they call it the coffee lock. Well, because you are literally like... You're up for days, because you can't long rest.
I'm reading this, and I just love the fact that it says you'll have to rely on greater restoration to combat the effects of exhaustion, and at that point you will need so much diamond dust you will now become the cocaine lock.
Yeah, literally. Like,
I love it. If I ever played with somebody and they brought this to the table, I wouldn't play that game.
No. I would not allow this in my game.
No,
like,
but
this,
it is fun.
It's a funny little thing. I might allow it, like, maybe for like a one shot, like a funny gimmicky one shot, maybe, where you just bring the most ridiculous stuff, but even then, I don't know. Like,
even the math on this would just confuse me while trying to play a game.
It's a lot. Like, this is that type of thing where it starts to break down, where you're just like, this is just too much. Like again, we utilize math in the game to help establish rules and fun, but there's a certain amount of math where you get to a certain point with math where it just stops being fun anymore. Like, you need to have a good balance of math and everything else, and usually the math is like the smallest part of the equation.
Yeah, for me, once I have to start adding up too much stuff.
Like, yeah, I mean, again, you're just like, oh yeah, I'm gonna have 16.
Let me get my conversion tables up.
Yeah, because you'll have to have your sorcery point table up, because again, it's not like 1 for 1. You don't get 5 sorcery points back for 5th level slots. It's like you get like 3 back for a 5th level slot, and I'm not even sure off the top of my head.
Yeah, I don't remember.
It's something like that, and then even then, it's like you have to spend like 3 sorcery points to get back a third, not even a third, like a 2nd level at time. Like, it's just not. It's a lot.
No, I want to look at the conversion table. But my thing is,
we can do that later. What's your next? What's your next multi-class?
I mean, for me, anything where you throw rogue in there.
Rogue is a great one to throw into almost anything.
I do actually very much enjoy, and this is kind of the later half of this multi-class is kind of up to the individual, whether you want to do 4 total multi-classes, 3 total multi-classes, or just an extra 1, where you have 2 multi-classes total.
Yeah.
I believe it's 10 or 11 levels in Valor Bard.
Ooh.
Using your magical secrets to pick up Swift Quiver. And then you go into Rogue, a combination of Rogue, Ranger, and Fighter, depending on what you want to do. You get Sneak Attack, you can get Hunter's Mark, you can get Battlemaster Fighter or Arcane Archer, and you basically just shoot everything. You take Sharpshooter, you take, you get like 4, I think it's 4 attacks per round with 1 spell.
Yeah.
And it's just, it does get ridiculous. Swift Quiver is one of those spells that I've rarely see it used. And the funny thing is, like, I know some DMs would probably be like, no, it's a quiver, it's only arrows. But technically, according to the spell, it's just ammunition. So you can do this with a character using a gun. Or a crossbow.
Yeah.
Or a sling, if you want to be weird. I just find it very entertaining to just be like, what do you do? Well, I play this instrument, and also, I shoot things all the time, everywhere, a lot. And it's very fun. It's one of those, like, I want to play an archer. And then someone else comes to the table with this stupid multi-class and ends up being a better archer than your archer character.
Yeah.
So it is a little like, you play this if you want to be the ranged damage dealer.
I was gonna say it's again once similar, and I think you guys will probably start to see a bit of a theme for some of these more like well-known popular cheese multi-class as they're very one-hit wonders.
By the way, you get wait, no. Your conversion for a 5th level spell slot is 7 sorcery points.
There you go. See, yeah.
That's
So
more.
you get a lot.
That's worse.
Yeah.
Oh,
You get a lot more now. So that's
the never-ending grind.
It's yes. You get more sorcery points for spell slots, but you have to spend more sorcery points to get the spell slots.
No, it's the same conversion both ways.
Okay, that's good.
But
So
so you could get out of the 5th level spell. Oh god,
that's what I'm saying. Though, like again,
oh, there's math. Oh no,
Yeah,
I need to go.
Well, not just that, but again, with third levels, with 7 sorcery points, you can get back like a ton of third level spell slots. And third level
You
slot,
get one third and 1 first.
1 first. So it's for.
Or you can just get a bunch of second levels.
Yeah. So for third level, what? It's like 4 sorcery
5.
points. It's 5 for third level. Okay. And
3
then
for
it's-
second, 2 for first,
Yeah.
6 for 4. So it's a weird. It's
Yeah,
a weird number 2. It doesn't
keeps,
make any sense.
That's what I'm saying. It keeps jumping up. Like it's f***ing ridiculous, and it's annoying as shit. Like the sorcery. That's why even when playing a normal sorcerer, that's still f***ing annoying. I still maintain my proclamation that it's the worst f***ing class in D&D 5th edition. It's so annoying. It just is. Nothing makes sense. Nothing.
The best one.
Nothing makes sense with sorcerer ever. It's just like the only thing that makes sense is the lore background of it. It's like having the cool, innate thing to magic. But even that's just like, wait a minute. If I have this, why do I suck so badly than everybody else? What the hell?
It's my favorite.
Either way, my next edition is going to be another pretty popular, well-known one, and it has to do with another warlock. It's another warlock combination, and that's the Blade Lock multi-class. Another highly cheese, and honestly, I think it might be, I don't know. It might depend, but we'll just start off with the normal Blade Lock. So, essentially, how the Blade Lock works, it is first and foremost going to be a crit fisher. It is a crit fish build, and what that means is it is a build that specifically relies on you critting a lot, or at least maximizing your chances for critting, because you don't even have to crit a lot. If you crit at all, you're going to do massive hella damage. So, essentially, I believe what you want to do is, you're going to be a melee fighter, first and foremost, because you're going to specifically be speccing into both Warlock and Paladin for this class. You want to hit stuff hard with some sort of melee weapon. You're going to want to have decent constitution. You want to have great charisma, because obviously both of those utilize charisma for their spell casts, which is going to be helpful for a lot of stuff. So I believe, essentially, you are going to take Pact of the Blade for Warlock. At first level, just Pact of the Blade. You're going to want to take Blade Thirst, Invocation. You're going to want to take just all the stuff. Essentially, what it is with Paladin, you have Divine Smite, right? With Warlock, especially with Pact of the Blade, you get your Hexblade's Curse. So you can apply your Hexblade's Curse to an individual. That gives you crits on both 20s and 19s. You can also then start putting on Divine Smites on your attacks, but also I believe Eldritch Smites as well with your Invocation. And so essentially what that does, hang on, let me even just freaking get all of this ridiculousness just straight up. Oh, I want to see the invocations specifically for Eldritch Smite.
Oh, that's a good one.
Yeah, Eldritch Smite is basically a combination, because you also can then use like a bonus action to then put on like another smite on your weapon.
You can technically Divine Smite, because it doesn't take an action to do.
Nope.
And you can Eldritch Smite as well, which means you're going to use one Paladin spell slot.
Yep.
And one... Well, no, you can use any spell slot and a Warlock spell slot, one of your Pact Magic slots.
Where?
To just do stupid damage.
It is utterly insane. It's legitimately freaking stupid. It doesn't. It's just like you're a literal nuke. Where I'm trying to again find the actual ability to see like what is the full like dice pool for if you crit with this thing. Aspect of the moon, because it's an Eldritch Invocation, right?
What?
Yeah, there it is. Here it is. Yeah. Once per turn, we hit a creature with a packed weapon. You can expend a Warlock spell slot to deal an extra 1d8 force damage to the target, plus another 1d8 per level of the spell slot.
And neither of them take any kind of action, so
no.
you can just do both of them.
You can do both of them. Yeah. And again, if you are a 9th level Warlock, you have 5th level Warlock spells. So you're literally going to do another d8 per level of the spell. So that's literally an extra 5d8 that you have. So you're going to deal 68 plus your Divine Smite, which is at least 2d8. Although I think if you use, is it technically you can use both of them with one spell slot? Is that no? You have to use two.
Have to use two spell slots.
But still, you use two of your 5th level Warlock spell slots on a crit.
Yeah, you're done. Because you can do it at any point during the turn. So you can do your attack first. You can fish for the crit. You can try to get
if you get a crit, if you get a 19, even just base level, it doesn't even matter. Even if you don't get a crit, you just base level pump two Divine Smite and Eldritch Smite.
Smites.
Like that is in and of itself insane. That's what 12d8 maybe.
If you can spread it out even better if you want to use one of your Paladin slots.
That's what I'm saying. Like you can this way say with Eldritch Smite you have to use a Warlock.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Slot.
So you'll have a couple. You can do like 3 times I think, and then you can also throw in a lower level Paladin.
Like where the frick is the divine Smite here for? There it is. Yeah. So this extra damage is 2d8 for a 1st level slot plus for each level higher. So yeah, you can get a max of 5d8. So yeah, you spend a 5th level slot, you're getting 68, I believe, with the Eldritch Smite, and an extra 5d8 with the Divine Smite, and that's not even including if the enemy is like a fiend or an undead, which gives you another, so you would get 60. So you could have up to 12d8 on an undead or a fiend creature for a divine for this blade lock attack, and that's not even on a crit. You would have 24 d8 along with whatever damage your weapon just deals. If you get a flame tongue, that's 24 d8 of damage along with freaking 6d6 of damage. That's 30 dice. That's 30 dice in a pool.
Yeah.
That's insane.
It's ridiculous.
That's like that's just like. And if you play the game like how I usually play it, how me and my group plays it, we do heroic crits, meaning you don't roll twice the dice, you just get the max roll of that second dice pool. So you just get 8s and 6s on whatever on d8s and d6s, and then you roll again. So it's like, oh my god, that is insane. Like this is one of the. Maybe I shouldn't say few, but this is one of the few that I'm aware of for multi-classes that like this multi-class is one of those is just redonkulous. It's ridiculous. And again, you don't even have to be like to be fair, to get to that point you would have to be almost half your level essentially. Like again, getting to 9th level Warlock, that's where you get those 5th level slots. And so obviously you would have to be like you didn't be a 11th level Paladin for a 20th level character. So that's still half, like that's almost potentially 20th level, although you don't even have to, because I think with Paladin you just get your Divine Smite at like 2nd level, right? I think it's second. Yeah, you get it at 2nd level. So you could technically, you could be an 11th level character, 9 in a Warlock and 2 in Paladin, and be able to do this. Yeah. Like.
It's a little bit ridiculous, and
it's obscene. It is an obscene combination, and again, it's one I don't think I would let in a long-term campaign because that's again, it's just obscene.
No, you wouldn't do that.
Not in the long term. I would do it maybe in a short-term campaign because I just want to see how high the damage could go. Like I would literally run like a a nine hells or an abyss or something, specifically that has to do with undead or fiends, just to see how much damage that this mother effer could do. Like that is probably the only time that I would allow this.
It's fun though.
It's super cool. It is a super cool thing, but it's also busted. It is absolutely insane. And again, you fish for crits. You have the ability to oh gosh.
Yeah. It's very fun.
And you just and again, if you take feats like Lucky, or if you're like, for instance, if you're a what do I want to do here? If you're an elf, you could take Elven Accuracy, because again, because you have Pact of the Blade and you're a warlock, you use your charisma specifically to attack.
Yeah.
You use your charisma modifier to attack, not your dex, not your strength, your charisma.
It just gets more ridiculous.
And you can take Elven Accuracy, so you can just legitimately keep rolling dice to fish for crits. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's so fun.
Like, Jesus, HF, dude. It's freaking, God. You just keep rolling dice to get those crits. And even if you don't get the crits, you would still potentially get 11d8. Just baseline. Just baseline. You have to expend 2 of your, 3 or maybe 4 Warlock spell slots, but you get those back at a short rest. You get those back at a short rest. It doesn't matter. And then you still have at least, and again, depending on how much you put into Paladin, you still have some Paladin spell slots to just do normal Divine Smites with, which are still going to be bonkers.
Yeah.
And again, you get yourself a great weapon. You get yourself. Hey, I was saying that's only a short blade flame tongue sword. What if you got a great sword, a flame tongue great sword? That would be 4d6. That would be 4d6 of damage.
It just gets worse. It's so fun though.
Well, okay. What's another one you got, Savvy?
I like well, this is more of a concept that I came up with. I don't know if it's that good or anything.
Fair.
Kind of getting into the more of our favorites that might not necessarily be proven or might not be that good.
Mm-hmm.
But I really love the combination of doing a rogue bard mix where
the super skill monkey.
Kind of. Well, with another thing kind of added to it, which is the
This is one we talked about before.
yeah, a little bit. So I want to use the College of Whispers bard with kind of because it allows you to do things like, kill someone and take their form and have a separate identity based on that.
Yep. Nope.
And kind of combining that with Assassin Rogue, so that using your disguise kit and your reaches into that side of things, you can create an entire false identity.
Persona.
And not just using disguise self, which is magic, anyone can see through it, but literally a costume.
No, you're wearing their body.
No, this is without even any magic.
Oh,
you have the ability to make a
No,
disguise.
that's true. Yeah, as an assassin, you're right.
Yeah, and so you use that
Takes 7 days
to create a persona for yourself, and you play that persona the whole campaign, and the whole time you are a separate character that sits there with its own ideals and own things that it wants to do, where you can steal people's souls and wear their face.
I'll do you even one
and
better.
No one even knows who you are.
Make it a changeling.
Yeah, exactly.
Just make it worse. Yeah,
you can add
assassin, College of Whispers bard.
It's just the concept.
You could literally you could just replace a monarch.
Yeah.
You could replace a monarch.
And so this would be great in
no one would know.
You basically you're an infiltrator with support magic, healing magic. You can go invisible. You can convince people of things.
You can move hella fast. You can be hella stealthy.
You're
great.
thing where
you have skills up the wahoo.
You'd
have expertise in so many things.
You'd be a great interrogator.
You can't fail skill checks.
If people let you talk to someone alone for a minute, you can pull their greatest fears out of their brain and use that against them.
Yep.
Here's the thing. I haven't played in a campaign where I'd be able to use this character because use it to its full extent. You are not a good person.
Well, not even just a good person. Like, here's the thing. I feel like that would be a great villains game.
Yeah.
Like, I would love to play an evil campaign because I would like to do shit like that too. But it's also not even just evil campaign. It's also it's very Game of Thrones-esque in terms of it being more role-play heavy rather than combat focused. Like, it's to get the best out of that and to have a lot of fun. It would be like, yeah, you are usurping and taking the play. Like, this would be a great like PC, or this would be a great DMPC for your DM to utilize as like an enemy. This would be a great big bad to be like, yeah, they are the perfect assassin almost. Like they're like Chameleon from Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's kind of
like that's it's kind of crazy. What would be some more kind of friggin' cool ones? Honestly, I thought another particularly interesting one, like just like have be extra would be like the Soul Knife rogue mixed with the Psy warrior fighter. Like having those two
that's
together.
What I do. I have that.
That's what I thought.
Gambit.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Like it's literally like just having the combination of both those psionic subclasses together.
You know what?
You just have so much psionics.
It's gone very well for me.
I bet it has. That one's always been a really fun, cool one. Same thing for like the Arcane Trickster and the Eldritch Knight. You know, having those two subclass combinations, again, literally gives you a little bit more into actual magic and versatility, while also giving you, like, you know, because they both just require the prerequisite of having dexterity. If you have dexterity 13... I would probably submit not as good as just going straight in.
Just go wizard.
Yeah. Just be a blade singer. Just be a blade singer at that point, in my opinion, because that's literally what a blade singer is. It's like a rogue mixed with he's a rogue wizard with really good AC because of the blade song. But regardless, like I think that just flavor wise is really cool and interesting to me. I think like Assassin Monk could be interesting. Like
Shadow Monk with Rogue.
Yeah, literally Shadow Monk with Rogue. You'll be able to teleport through shadows at a high enough level, and like you will always go pretty freaking fast. Like,
also having the ability to cast silence on places to sneak through them and get the drop on
because you don't use freaking verbal components for anything. You don't cast spells. You don't need to be heard. You just snap their neck. That's it. You just beat the tar out of them.
Well, stab the tar out of them.
I mean, well, as a monk, you just beat the crap.
Well, so here's the weird thing. I did look at this. You can't use sneak attack with monk attacks. So you have to use
not with fists. You do have to use weapons. Yeah,
but
with sneak attack. Yeah.
Once you hit your sneak attack,
that's what you get extra attack. Though. That's what I'm saying.
And also the cool thing is
with monk, you get extra attack, and then also you get key points. So you would literally sneak attack, stab, and then just beat the tar out of them after that. Like there's not. And again, if you're an assassin, you would get instant crit. You would get an instant crit with the first attack, and then I don't know if there's much that could really survive that onslaught. Like if you're able, because I think depending on how high you want it to go with monk, certain ones I think even with Wave Shadow, I wonder if I think it allows you to go invisible. Pass without trace, silence. Yeah, so you can cast with key points. You can cast darkness, pass without trace, or silence. You have Shadow Step, Cloak of Shadows. At 11th level, you can become invisible in dim light or darkness.
Yeah, it's pretty great.
Like, you just... again, it's just ridiculous. And then, heck, if you also, like, if you get Devil's Sight, like with the Warlock feature, darkness, you can just see through your darkness.
I think Shadow Monk gets darkness.
They do get darkness.
No, they get the dark, like you can...
Oh, you can see through it?
I think so, maybe. I don't know. That might be Shadow Sorcerer.
Yeah, that's sorcerer. You use your key, if you use your sorcery points, you can see through it as a Shadow Sorcerer.
That makes sense.
But I think, for here, you cannot see through it.
That makes sense.
You don't need material components, but it doesn't specifically say you can see through it. But yeah, dude, at 6th level, you can Shadow Step. That's crazy. For Sorcerers, it's 14th level. I'm pretty sure to Shadow Step.
Yes.
Like, that also shows how much Sorcerers suck.
Stop.
Once again, monks can Shadow Step at 6th level. Sorcerers can Shadow Step at 14th. Ridiculous.
You're just hating on this one class.
Because it's terrible. It's so bad.
Yeah, I hate wizards.
Now, to be
I
fair,
never played them.
you love wizards. You want to play one.
I don't play them.
You don't play them, but you want to
I
play
never do.
one.
I never play them.
Yeah, but you definitely want to.
Nerds, that's
You've
why.
literally told me you want to play one. Yeah, because you're a f***ing nerd, Sam. You know you
so
are.
nerdy. I want to be a character that like beats people up.
They can, man.
I want to be I want to be like a big wizard. Just big old wizard.
You could.
I want to be a Goliath wizard. He has a little wand. It's like this.
Yep.
Yeah, but he's holding it with 2 fingers. He also doesn't speak common. That'd be the best part about him. So you'd have to...
Just speaks giant.
Yeah, he speaks giant and orcish, and so you'd have to like... He's smart, he's just really big, and he doesn't know how big he is. He's like those golden retrievers.
Yeah, I get you. Yeah, the Great Danes. Yeah, the Great Danes.
Great Danes. They kind of never know where they're at.
To be fair, I will say for the monk, they can only teleport 60 feet.
Yeah, shadow step is a lot.
It's 120 feet. It's twice that.
Oh yeah, it's almost like... It's almost like they can just do that in 2 turns.
Yeah, literally. It's almost like they could just do that.
You know what? I don't want to talk about it.
And it's not even like, you necessarily need to teleport that full 120 feet when you're in a fight most of the time.
I don't know why you're just really ruining this all for me. I used to really like until I met you. I really liked Shadow Sorcerer, and then I met you, and it was all ruined, and now I don't know how to go back from that. So thank you. It's very nice, and I appreciate it.
Oh my goodness! It's not gonna be an episode of Arcane Archive if we don't shit on the sorcerer just a little bit.
I'd rather if we could just shit on Undying Warlock. That'd be so much better.
I'll absolutely shit on the Undying Warlock, but that's just the one subclass of Warlock. When you have the vast majority of the full class of a sorcerer, it's there's so much more. There's so much more to shit on, Sam. We shat on the Undying Warlock,
but they're so cool because they get Constitution saving throws. And, it's really neat.
Just take Resilient. You just always take Resilient anyway.
I always do, but you don't have to. You can just take Warcaster instead. So you get advantage on it. I don't like this.
And it's not even like sorcerers have a shit ton of, concentration spells that they'll use, per se.
It says you. They got more...
They have more attack spells. It's not like they were druid.
I think I've broken you by just trying to hang on to what little I have for the sorcerer. Do we want to go over really bad multi-classes that people do?
Yeah.
Traps people fall into?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's move on to that.
My favorite is speccing too far into a martial class while trying to spec into a spellcaster as well. And then you're not good at either of them.
Yeah, no.
Because that already exists.
It's just a subclass.
Just play Eldritch Knight.
Play Eldritch Knight, Arcane Trickster, Blade Singer.
The whole... When you try to overspec...
Or War Domain Cleric.
Yeah.
Or Forge Cleric.
You're essentially overspeccing into... You can easily fall into the trap of, well, now I have both these things I have access to, but everybody else at my table does both of these things better.
Yeah.
Just spread out between 2 different characters. And so you become this, weird in the middle where you're I really want to be able to do melee fighting well. And it's great, but half of your health is a wizard hit die, and so you're not nearly as tanky. But then you're also but I'm also casting all these spells, and it's yeah, but you're not casting them at a high enough level.
For it to really outpace or measure up to your friends who are if you're fighting if you're fighting an ancient dragon, their level spells are gonna be good, yeah. Those always not work. Really. As long as you're not fighting a red dragon or a gold dragon, fire or I think brass, fireball always works good. It's still powerful, still great. Haste, still great and awesome and amazing, but you're not doing you're not casting Dawn.
No.
Or Sunburst.
You're also not able...
Disintegrate.
You can't cast them as many times. Yes, it gives you options.
You have more versatility. For instance, compared to your wizard friend, you could probably take a couple more hits.
Maybe.
You have probably a higher AC, maybe, unless he has, Robes of the Archmagi, which is, a legendary item, but still. you would have the ability to at least wear medium armor, which could get you up to like what, like because it's +2. What is half plate? Half plate's 16 standard, and then you can add +2 for your dex.
I think it's 14 standard +2.
Half plate, not half plate. Absolutely not. Half plate's like.
I don't think you add anything to half plate then.
No, you do. You for medium armor, it's always +2 dex unless you have like
the max is
medium
16.
armor mass.
Maybe one of them is 17.
No, I'm pretty sure half plate is like 16. Just normal half plate is like 16.
You're gonna make me look.
I'm looking now.
I can't believe you made me look at this.
I'm looking now.
I'm doing it.
Freaking.
God, my computer is so slow right now.
God damn it! Hang on a minute. I can just do this right here.
It's 15.
Ah,
Just 15.
Yep.
You don't add
So
to
we're
it.
in this. No. For half plate is
it?
Yeah, half plate is also plus is medium armor. Yeah, it's armor class 15. You add +2 for your dex.
So 17 is the max you can get with medium armor.
Yeah, unless you take again like half plate master or medium armor mastery, then you can add +3. I think. You can get higher. So the max technically if you took medium armor master would be 18. You could get armor class. So you'd have basically full plate. It would be like having full plate at that point. But you still get 17, which is good. If you probably want to have a little bit of dex as if you're gonna multi-class for like wizard and like fighter, you probably want to do a dex build instead of a strength build. It makes more sense.
And like you're already you're giving up things like having disadvantage on stealth. It's just a rough.
But even again, like for instance, if you have a high stealth though, you just cast mage armor on yourself.
Well, just use studded leather armor.
Well, you can't. Not on wizards.
I know, but if you're proficient in light armor somehow, say you're a dwarf.
Like a blade singer?
No, like a dwarf.
Like a blade singer?
No, I see. I think you're mistaking what you're talking about, and I'm talking about my awesome dwarf sorcerer who used melee spells.
Oh, is he awesome? Is he awesome, Sam?
He died. He died before he.
Oh.
He.
Oh no.
He died before he bloomed into the beautiful flower he was supposed to be.
That's so sad, Sam. Your sorcerer, your dwarf sorcerer.
Oh, he was gonna be so good.
What was his subclass gonna be, Sam?
He was a shadow sorcerer.
Shadow sorcerer? What level was he?
3.
Aw, he just became a shadow sorcerer. Didn't even get to teleport at 14th level.
Oh, he might have even been like level 2. When do you get Shadow Blade? I think that was our best spell. Shadow Blade. I hate that. I don't know why you're really just. Oh, he might have been. I mean, when do you get second level spells? Is that level 3?
Yeah, level 3. I think it's second level spells.
Oh, he's so beautiful. I miss him so much. I don't even remember his name. I have to scrub him from my memories. It's too painful. I watched him get gunned down in a square trying to free a friend from prison.
But yeah, so I mean, I would say
he was 3rd level. You don't even get second level spells till 3rd level as a sorcerer.
Yeah, no, you don't. You do not. You get them as every other spellcaster class, except for maybe bard. But yeah, no, you don't.
No, I don't think you do. I think second level just gives you more first level spell slots.
Well, no, second level does. Yeah, 3rd level you get
Is
second.
when you get second level.
Yeah, is when you get 3rd level.
God, you got a whole 2.
Yep.
2 slots,
Yeah.
which means half of my thing. I could do it twice.
Yep.
And it was done.
And that was done. That was it. That's all you had, bro. You blew your load.
I miss it so much.
Okay, all right. Anyway,
Sorry.
no. Back to some multi-class options that we think are not great. So we gave the outline basically of like the risk of doing multi-class. Obviously, is you run the risk of being less effective overall than compared to your companions who just went straight for it. That's what we've been saying and prefacing throughout this entire video so far. And it's definitely true. Like, if you're not careful, like you said, if you go too hard into, like... If for instance, if you're a spellcaster class, if you recall, whenever you start, the first class you choose, those are proficiencies you get. And so, obviously, if you start as a wizard and then spec into fighter, then... you'll get some of the armor proficiencies and everything, But obviously, as you keep going forward, like Sam said, you're not going to be able to dish out nearly as much. Other fighters are probably at the same level. They're going to have that triple attack. You won't have that.
No.
You'll only have probably, just the multi. You'll have 2 attacks. They'll have that triple attack already. They're going to get a more action surges.
They're going to get more abilities that just augment what they already do.
And it just makes them more effective killing machines. And obviously, people do make the whole thing about fighters being like, fighters are just the hits things real good class.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with hitting things real
I
good.
agree. Like I said, most people kind of shit on the fighter for being like the most boring, simple class. But in my opinion, it's like, honestly, fighters are awesome. They're dope. They do what they do really well. Like they can do, and you can do some really cool, dope stuff with them. Especially if you give them some cool magic items and stuff. Like, but
a lot of those martial classes, like you want a small dip.
Yeah, that's usually the case.
Like
I would say having an action surge for a caster would be fantastic. You could cast 2 spells. At least in my game, I would allow that. Like, obviously in the core rules, it's like, you can't cast more than 1 leveled spell around unless it's a cantrip or whatever, and you have the economy. For in my games, you can cast whatever level spells as long as you have the action resources to spend. So if you have a bonus action and an action and a react, you can cast them whatever. That also brings up the question too, though, about reactions. It's like, you can't cast leveled spells, but you can cast spells as reactions, though. That seems.
So there's also the
like a weird kind of discrepancy there.
Actually, there's only very specific spells you can cast as reactions, or you can use your reaction to hold a spell, but it still takes your action to cast it. So,
obviously it takes your action to cast the spell, and then you take your reaction to then hold it to cast.
So like the only there's only obviously it's like what counterspell,
shield, silvery barbs.
Yeah, so like those are different.
Soul cage.
Soul Cage is not a reaction to cast. That was an action, and then it's a reaction to do stuff after that.
No, it's a reaction upon seeing a creature that dies within like 60 feet of you to capture their soul.
I gotta use that spell more often.
Yeah, man. I used it recently. It's cool. It's a cool spell.
Yeah.
It's a really cool spell. But yeah, it is a reaction.
Yeah. So for me,
again, those are like high level spells at that. So
for me, like, I think it's fun if you're doing like 2 martial classes. Your level dips aren't nearly as important. Mostly because the fighting classes, like the martial classes, usually just have a lot of stuff early on.
Well, they get stuff every level.
Pretty much.
That's the cool thing about martial classes as opposed to like spellcaster classes. Is like obviously with spellcaster, like you do get things every level. Like you get
called spells. They change how the world works.
Not every level, okay. You get no. I mean you can wizards get like 2 new spells every level.
So do sorcerers. They all get spells every level.
No, they don't.
Full casters do.
Well, no, even bards and sorcerers, like they don't get
2 per level. I thought I wanted to say.
No.
I played a bard for a long time.
No, you.
Come on.
I don't think you get 2 per level. Maybe with bard, but with sorcerer, you only get a certain amount, depending. And sometimes that doesn't change, and you can switch the spells out every level. But I don't think you get 2 new ones every level.
It looks like it's just 1.
Yeah, you get 1 every level, and you can switch 1 out every level.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
Why are you stepping to me about it? So you can't do it, man.
I want to make him seem better.
No matter what you do, it's not gonna happen.
I want to make him seem better.
Regardless, point being, even with casters, you don't you get new spell slots like every other level or so. Every 2 levels. Like, it's like every other level or every 2 levels. And that also starts to kind of go higher and higher as you go, because then you usually will just end up getting like more spell slots, for instance.
Yeah, for some of your low level spell slots.
Yeah, and then like sometimes you then will get, but with martial classes you get like a new thing basically every single level. Whether it be an ability score improvement, which again martial classes get more so than
fighters specifically.
You get the most ability score improvements, which also gives you the ability to get feats, which are incredible. Like so much cool things. Fighter is definitely one of the best to dual spec into for almost any class you're playing.
Rogue is good.
Doesn't matter what. Rogue is great because again, Rogue gives you like cunning action,
sneak attack.
Because it's just free damage.
Free damage.
It's just free damage. Same thing for Paladin and Warlock. Great classes. Monk has always arguably been like the worst class to multi-class into because
they just get so much
Well, but it's just so focused to them. Like they don't have things that really complement anything else except for, again, maybe like fighter. Like I said,
I still think the Shadow Monk Assassin, you could build
Shadow Monk Assassin, I think would be fun because again, they both use Dex, which is great.
And it's also something specific.
With a fighter, like you could attack hell amount of times too. Like if you go like
you have to go monk.
Like even like for instance, if you went like 5th level monk, you would have five monk or 5 key points, and you get those back at a short rest. And you could literally just spend key points to, or even if you get
just do 4th level monk if you're gonna do that.
4th level monk could work too.
You just do the rest fighter.
Well, I was also gonna say like you could potentially try to get up to like evasion. 7th level monk, you get evasion.
Yeah,
and also I think free or slow fall.
You're doubling up on the first extra attack.
I mean, that doesn't really matter. Like, because you...
I guess
like,
you could just go the rest fighter.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you go like, get up to 7th level with monk, because you get evasion, and because this is clearly going to be a dex character. Like, this is a dex character. So you're going to have high dex, you're going to have dex saving throws with fighter, so even if you start with fighter or if you start with monk, either one, you're going to have dex saving throws.
Yeah, all you do is you just take Battle Master, you trip everybody, and then punch them all.
Yeah, and then if you have evasion after that, you just take everything else with fighter. So you'd only be able to go up to 13th level with fighter at that point. But you get 3 attacks and then an extra 2 with
Flurry of Blows.
Flurry of Blows. So you get 5 attacks straight up. And that's basically the amount that a max fighter, like a normal max fighter, could do. It's even higher, technically.
Yeah, plus you get Action Surge.
You get Action Surge. I think you still get 2 Action Surges at 13th level.
I believe so.
So you'd still have a ton of stuff. So I think that could work for Monk.
Yeah, there are. But that's an example of a split. Like that's a full split down the middle almost. Whereas most multi-classes,
there's more. There's definitely it's almost double fighter than it is Monk. Like if you're 13 fighter, 7 monk,
7,
yeah, you're almost half. That's almost double the amount.
That's kind of what I'm doing. I'm at 15th level. I'm at 6th fighter, 9 rogue.
Yeah. I mean, that's honestly, those are great. Like, again, Barbarian, Paladin, your thing, fantastic. Honestly, I think you could even, well, what level do you get Brutal Critical at?
I think 9.
Features, Danger Sense. Yeah, 9th level is Brutal Critical. So if you do 9th level, Barbarian, 9th level Warlock, 2nd level Paladin.
Oh god.
That would make your crit fishing like, yeah. Because we already said you could even be a 2nd level Paladin, and it would. You wouldn't get your subclass for Paladin though. Is the only thing.
No.
That would be the only problem. Which again, a lot of people are like, that doesn't make any sense. How are you taking this oath, but only really taking it? Which honestly though,
you have to live through the oath.
I was gonna say, I think
I used to hate it. I actually like it.
No, that's why I agree. I think it makes sense because that's like again, yeah, you can make an oath. That doesn't mean you embody it though. That doesn't mean you have to actually, you don't actually embody that oath or those beliefs until you actually show that you can shoulder that stuff. But yeah, dude, having oh my god, because you could also go rage too. Like again, Eldritch Smite is not a spell.
The only problem is you would still have. Oh no, it doesn't matter. It's a smite.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a smite.
You could use a great sword.
Yeah, it's not a. And you could. I think. I don't know if you could use a great sword with your pact match, with your blade, pact of the blade. I think it still has to be a one-handed. I think it has to specifically be a weapon that doesn't have the heavy or two-handed trait to it. For Warlock.
Even for improved?
I think. Because I think improved just gives you like bows and stuff like that.
I thought I got rid of the heavy. I thought it was okay to do a two-handed.
I don't think so.
I think you could do a two-handed longsword though.
Yeah, no, because that's not a heavy. It doesn't have the heavy thing in it. So you could do longsword for sure.
So lame though is.
It's still a D8 or a D10 if you hold it two-handed, if you versatile it. Yeah, I know. And if it's a flame tongue, that's 1D10, 2D6, and then again the freaking 5D8. Or no, I'm sorry, 11D8 plus brutal critical adds 1 extra damage die, so that would be 12, if not 13D8 for a crit.
It does work. That's also like you have to get.
No, I'm sorry. Crits would be 24. Crits would be
depending on how you do.
11, 22, 23 D8, just baseline, not against like a fiend or something. Because yeah, hang on. Let's see. Brutal critical gives at just 9th level just gives the 1 extra die, right? Because I know at 16th or something it gives like 2 extra or 3 extra. I'm sorry, 3 extra die, I believe.
There's a lot going on here.
Yeah, you roll 1 additional weapon damage die for critical attack. It increases to 2 at 13th and then 3 at 17th. There it is. So yeah, if you do like 9th level, because again, even. I'm just wondering if it would be worth it just to have the 1 extra damage die. But again, you'd also have rage.
You are now seeing in real time the back and forth of, do I dare?
Do I dare? Should I?
Am I gonna be bad?
You get fast movement. You get feral instinct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want to be bad? That's the whole. This is the.
Yeah, like we just
reality.
talked about like an evil campaign thing. Like yes, like
fair enough.
But yeah, but no, this is only ever going to be used in an evil campaign,
Yeah,
Sam.
yeah.
Like we're not going to do this in an upstanding, honorable campaign where we're trying to connect and have fun with our friends.
You can call yourself upstanding and honorable.
I am an upstanding, honorable person most of the time. But there are some times you just gotta be dirty, okay? Sometimes you just gotta get down and dirty and have a good, fun time just destroying things. But regardless, all of that to say, even with what we gave the example of like Monk being kind of usually considered to be the worst multi-class, you can even still find cool things to do with Monk, as we kind of gave some examples there. Like, there are viable... we both think there are viable builds and ways that you can make any class into a cool multi-class blend, Like, bards are great, again, for their skill proficiencies and the like. That's always fantastic to have, again, due to their lack, some of the sorcerers with their spells and stuff, but having them, like, spec into another kind of spellcaster or maybe even, like, a martial class works well. Again, honestly, I think sorcerers might be... Not take it back. They're not actually that great to multi-class into. Because again, with their sorcery point allocation stuff, I was going to say, meta magic could be a great thing to have like a sorcerer wizard thing. Because you can use meta magic. But you can't, because the sorcery points at low levels are just garbage.
Oh, here.
Like again, unless it's with the coffee lock, which you can use...
Sorkaden. You just do paladin sorcerers, so you can use all your sorcerer spell slots for your paladin smites.
For smites?
It's a real thing.
No, I know.
Do it.
I
That's
know.
cool.
Yeah, that's one of the more viable ones.
Mine would just
like I said, same thing. We also said the coffee lock. The coffee lock is one that works because you can use the warlock spell slots for it.
Yeah, that's the chain gun warlock as well. Sorcerer's not that great.
Okay, we're not gonna get stuck on that again. Moving forward.
Iron Man, I do fighter and sorcerer, storm sorcerer.
Just do artificer. Just do artificer armorer.
Yeah, it's kind of an old fashioned.
Just do
I might
artificer
do it
armorer.
just to piss somebody off. They're gonna be like, I'm playing an armorer.
Artificer.
I'm like, oh yeah. Okay. Alright. Here's my fighter storm sorcerer.
Yeah, there we go.
He's Iron. He's Iron Man. I took the feature that allows me to get Eldritch Blast.
Yeah.
I spell sniper.
Yeah.
Fuck you.
Yeah, it's just like I just.
What are you doing?
I'm floating. I just turn into my infiltrator armor and I can shoot.
I am floating 10 feet above the ground, 1,200 feet away, and I will shoot you with Eldritch Blast. It's the dumbest shit. I love it. Don't question my terrible builds.
But yeah, that I think in essence
I think that's about all we're gonna
is all we can really have on multi-classing, you guys. Like that's about it. Again, it's always a really fun, interesting component and aspect of the game with the versatility and the customization. Again, that's one of, I think, the biggest appeals of D&D 5e, is why, with the multi-classing components and so many other things of its flexibility, its access, and definitely with the multi-classing, it's like you can do so much. You have a lot of opportunity to really suck eggs, but you also have a lot of opportunity to, decimate your enemies in glorious hellfire as much as you want. So
just be prepared for someone to tell you no.
Yeah, just be prepared. Just overall, this is going to require a lot of communication depending on what build you're going to do, probably for a lot of them, you're always going to have to keep a lot, like, far more close track of a lot of different things that you can do and how things work and what's going on and how they interact with one another, because obviously there are a lot of little, like, loopholes or stipulations or, like, you know, clauses that might restrict you from doing one thing that you thought would be super cool, and then other things are like, oh, I didn't even know I could do that with this. Cool.
Yeah.
Such as, you know, with the warlocks, with the warlock spells, with the pack magic feature, or, you know, with the sorcery point allocation thing.
Bear Totem Barbarian Druid.
Yeah.
People don't realize you can rage
And then transform. Yeah. So you could do that. Like, that's not concentration. That's not anything. You could just literally become an enraged bear.
Yeah, but being a barbarian with trying to sneak attack as a rogue is very difficult because you do lose out on your extra strength damage while you're raging because you're using a finesse weapon.
And yeah, because
there's a lot of little words.
Yeah, there are a lot of little things, you know, you have to pay attention to, like I said. And overall, though, if you do it right, if you plan accordingly, if you communicate well with your DM and your party, you have the opportunity to make something really special and incredible. So, you know, I do believe that is all she wrote on this episode of MetaTalks of
shitting on sorcerers.
Yeah, shitting on this episode of the Arcane Archive presents shitting on sorcery.
I think we just have to put that as like in parentheses after all of our titles that are MetaTalk. And I'm really excited to get to if we ever do a lore episode about sorcerers. Because how much of you hating sorcerers will seep through into?
I mean, it won't. The lore, I love the lore.
No, but there's gonna be a little. There has to be.
No, I mean, sure. I'm sure Alistair has a certain feeling. He has feelings about sorcerers.
Well, you trained for your man.
Yeah, they did not.
Didn't.
No,
Yeah.
This is true. Well. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. We'll see you soon. I need to commission somebody to make like a shitting sorcerer song, like just like a
song that shits on sorcerers.
Just a song that just shits on sorcerers.
I'll get a tattoo shitting on sorcerers. I will do that for you.
You would?
Yeah, 100%.
That's why you're my best friend,
it would
Mike.
be,
That's why you're my bud.